Morning, I'm hiking along Silver Creek Canyon, the creek itself being dry this time of year, and I'm going to pause to talk a little anime.
Gasaraki.
Gasaraki is a 1998 mecha sci-fi anime TV series with supernatural overtones. It's released in North America by ADV Films. The story is set in contemporary Japan. It's heavy on corporate intrigues, politics, conspiracies, plus a few ancient cults. The first episode teases the twin aspects of this series, mecha and mysticism, but it's light on any explanations for what's going on either side. It quickly introduces the lead character, Yushiro Goa. Yushiro is working as a military test pilot on a new experimental bipedal tactical armor called the TA. It's developed by a private company, the Goa Group, which happens to be owned by his family. This new tactical armor is so demanding of its pilots that their medical status has to be monitored continuously back in their command and control vehicle, and the pilots are hooked up to receive automatic drug injections during operations. These TAs really push the pilots to their mental and physical limits. Among the handful of pilots in the test unit, Yushiro seems far away the best at meshing with the TA.
Up.
心拍数250を超えました。
フィジカルコントロールをレベル E に C 液の注入を 15% 増やせ。
The second half of the first episode also introduces the supernatural aspect of the series. It turns out Yushiro's family has also trained him as a traditional Japanese no dancer. On an ancient stage of stone out at his family's rural estate, Yushiro is told to perform a dance. It's not clear if he knows in advance that this dance is apparently meant to summon some ancient mystic power. However, as Yushiro enters the fugue state of the dance and the supernatural forces begin to gather around him, his trance is interrupted by a vision of a young woman who screams a warning, "Don't bring it back." When Yushiro aborts the ceremony, he keeps his reason and that vision to himself. Despite that brief foray into the supernatural, the series will quickly settle back into the more realistic real world of mecha. The Goa Group arranges to send their new TAs into a battle zone where NATO is invading a fictitious rogue state. It's a clear takeoff on the first Iraq War, I think. The Goa Group partly wants to show off the capabilities of their fancy new TAs, sort of as an advertisement. But the Goa Group also has an ulterior interest in some energy bursts they detected in that desert nation, which reminded them of their own supernatural experiments. Getting a JSDF unit sent to a combat zone is going to require some high-level bribery and political power plays. Everyone's surprised when this expedition reveals the existence of another new bipedal mecha, apparently developed by a rival global corporation and loaned to the rogue state. When Yushiro confronts one of the rival states, he senses the same woman who entered his vision back in the no dance. It turns out this woman is similar to Yushiro, the best of her company's pilots. The two will quickly identify themselves as having a bond stronger to each other than to their family or their company, and they'll meet off the battlefield several times throughout the series.
Why have you come here? You saw it as well, didn't you?
Don't bring back the terror. What did that mean? What is this terror?
Gasaraki is hard to categorize. A good deal of the character's motivation comes from the supernatural side of the storyline, but the vast majority of the actual action is firmly grounded in the realistic world of the military hardware, corporate maneuvers, war, and political power. The main plot will unfold as a complex series of intrigues involving those global corporations, rival factions in the government, international trade, and conspiracy to overthrow the Japanese government. The second half of the series starts with a 2-episode flashback to 1,000 years ago. The title, in fact, comes from a supernatural force Gasaraki revealed back then. But just as the story seems about to plunge headlong into the murky waters of supernatural phenomena, it suddenly snaps back again into the real world of political machinations and mecha combat. Gasaraki will tie up the main storyline in 24 episodes and save the resolving of the supernatural mumbo-jumbo crap for the 25th and final episode. I didn't think either of those two conclusions was especially satisfying, which was disappointment considering the intricacies that build up that went into what came before. As a character, Yushiro is only modestly engaging through the start of the story. He doesn't really become an identifiable hero figure until he commits to rescuing Miyoru, as well as himself, from the plots that are entangling them. Miyoru remains an enigma throughout. She's the pilot of a mysterious rival company for most of the series, and she's quiet even when she is part of the storyline. And she's not in the story all that often. The supporting cast is huge. It includes Yushiro's Goa family, in which there are rival generational factions and goals, his patriarch father, his driven older brothers, and his devoted younger sister. The cast also includes some members of Yushiro's Tactical Armor Military Test Unit, which drifts in and out of the story. Plus it includes some members of the rival Symbol Corporation, for which Miyu works, plus some members of the conspiracy that are trying to overthrow the Japanese government, and a handful of politicians and other JSDF officers. One of the reasons I was interested in Gasaraki is its pedigree. Gasaraki is produced by Sunrise and directed by Ryosuke Takahashi, who created the classic mecha series Votoms. Takahashi more recently directed Flag. His co-director is Goro Taniguchi, who's currently working on Code Geass. The artwork is pretty nice. For the most part, it's intentionally grounded in reality and detail. A lot of effort went into making these bipedal mecha credible, at least within a sci-fi setting. The mechanical designs are by Utaka Izubuchi, who worked on such series as Razafon and Patlabor, and Shinji Aramaki, who worked on Megazone 2-3 and more recently directed the Appleseed 2004 and Ex Machina movies. The animation of this artwork is pretty typical for a 10-year-old TV series. The opening and closing songs and most of the background music invokes traditional Japanese melodies and no theater in one way or another, so it helps wrap the series in that supernatural mood the story keeps flirting with. ADV's English dub sounded alright to me, but I wish they'd leveled the volume a little bit for the very soft voice of Miyoru. It'd make things easier on my old ears. Overall, I give Gasaraki 4 stars. It's a complicated and detailed story. On the whole, it's engrossing if a little slow to unfold. It skates on that thin edge between the hard-nosed real world and the ill-defined supernatural nonsense, but mostly it suffers the greatest from a weak and hasty ending. ADV released the 25 episodes over 8 DVDs, or only 3 episodes per DVD. There are some text extras on each of the DVDs, such as a running glossary and some translated interviews with some of the Japanese creative team. Thanks for listening.